Kiev. Hello to you, Yulia. Now, what's in store for George Bush for today?
The presidents are set to have a face-to-face discussion first, followed by an interstate commission with members of the administration. Now, a lot of things are on their agenda for them today. They're expected to sign the so-called roadmap, which will write out the relations between the two countries for the next and the following years. Different things will be on the agenda, like cooperation in space, business, military, trade sectors. But, of course, the most important point will be Ukraine's entrance exception into NATO. George Bush is expected to support Ukraine's bid at the upcoming Bucharest summit. Then the heads of the administration, as we're told, will be treated to a rather heavy traditional breakfast. On the menu there will be traditional Ukrainian dumplings with cherries. And then the presidential couples will go to St. Sophia's Cathedral, which is one of the oldest churches in Kiev and Ukraine. Some of its monuments date back to the 11th century. Also, George W. Bush is expected to meet with Prime Minister Yulia Tymoshenko and the leader of opposition, former Prime Minister Viktor Yanukovych. Then George W. Bush and Laura Bush are expected to visit one of the Kiev Central Lyceums for school lesson. So they will have quite an interesting program set for today.
Well, as we know, feelings are divided among Ukrainians regarding possible NATO membership, but it looks like the country's leadership wants to push ahead anyway. Now, is there any indication people's attitude may change?
Well, for the last 15 years, public opinion have been changing, but only towards more negative figures against NATO. According to the latest poll, more than 62% of Ukrainian population vote against Ukraine's joining the alliance. And as their motivation, they see it as a military and aggressive bloc. They fear that it may worsen relations with NATO. And of course, they think that if Ukraine joins NATO, their men will be taken to the war and become cannon fodder, especially in the light of the recent campaign in Afghanistan. Now, in the early 80s, when Ukraine was still part of the Soviet Union, they took part in the Soviet-Afghan war, in which thousands of men were killed and more than 8,500 were left disabled. Therefore, this question is especially sensitive here for the people of Ukraine, who think that if Ukrainians do join NATO, their men will return to Afghanistan, and this is exactly what they don't want to see happen again. As to Ukrainian leadership, indeed, they're pushing, despite negative opinion polls, they're pushing for their country to be accepted. Some 9 Eastern European countries pledged support, and also Canada. They sent an official letter to NATO headquarters asking for Ukraine to be accepted at the next summit. According to President Yushchenko, joining NATO means embracing democracy, raising social standards, reforming the military sector, and Yulia Tymoshenko is stressing, however, that the final decision will be taken only after a public referendum. But of course that remains to be seen, and according to political analyst Boris Makarenko, all countries will have to support Ukraine in their bid in order to be accepted for the membership action plan.
It's too primitivistic to believe that NATO is a US plus alliance. It's an alliance of 20 plus nations, each of which has a veto, and not all European nations will be happy to see Russia enraged by a hasty admission of Ukraine and Georgia into NATO.
So as you see, George W. Bush will have a difficult task on his hands, even if he pledges support to Ukrainian leadership today in the presidential administration. It doesn't mean that he will be able to secure this country's membership in the Bucharest summit, and a lot still has to be done in the years to come.
Finally, Yulia, we all saw those anti-NATO rallies yesterday. Are they likely to continue today?
they are set to continue. As you can probably see behind me, there is a protesters' camp at the fateful Orange Revolution Square. Now, the revolution happened here in 2004, that's 4 years ago. The protests today have changed, and they do say that they will continue their campaigns today against George W. Bush's visit, but it's unlikely they will get anywhere near the man because the streets have been blocked, and for 4 hours last night, the main road, the main highway from Borispol airport to Kiev was restricted, and perhaps the drivers in the center of Kiev will complain the most because, again, those roads that you perhaps can see behind me are one of the main bloodlines in the country, in Kiev, and the movement there, the traffic have been restricted today, and the city will experience difficulties. Also, the presidential administration is being guarded by almost 4,000 policemen. The people of Ukraine who are living in the city center were warned not to carry anything looking like the guns because there are policemen all over, and if they see anyone looking like a terrorist with a gun or anything resembling like that, they may get shot. They're asked not to climb the tops of the buildings. So these are unprecedented measures taken by the Kiev administration, and none of the other presidents is being greeted like that.
Well, thank you very much for your update, Yulia. That was our correspondent, Yulia Popova, reporting from the Ukraine.